Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick, and today's tutorial is on cannabis and cancer. If you check out the link below, you'll see the video I did on LDN and cancer, which I think are both together for my patients that do have cancer are fantastic. No limited side effects, if anything, and great benefits. But unfortunately, in the oncology specialty, most of my colleagues in oncology don't really follow, except for Donald Abrams. Donald Abrams is a fellow graduate from the Arizona Center for Integrative Medicine, who wrote this book with a foreword by Andy Weil. So, and there are a lot of other contributors to the book, including Dr. Block. So there is a Keith Block in Evanston who also practices integrative medicine. He's not a fellow graduate from the Arizona Center, but he is very good. And I usually send most of my patients to him. However, if you're on a journey to battle cancer, like my Ate Rose in Denmark, the idea is to keep your chin up. So the objective of a doctor, especially oncologist, is to be honest, and I think that's appropriate, but that honesty shouldn't rob you of hope. So I think it's important to know that even if you have been given a terminal diagnosis and there's nothing else to do, then I'd say time to step over into Eastern medicine or alternative and complementary medicine, because there's a lot to do. So don't give up hope. I think that there's options. So let's talk about cannabis first. So cannabis, everybody knows of it as marijuana, and everybody knows that marijuana has this stuff called THC in it that makes you, it's psychoactive, it does make you high, but that is such, that's a side effect, sometimes a good effect for a lot of people that are using it recreationally, but that same plant has a lot of potential for other things. So actually, there's a guy out of Tel Aviv, Dedi Marieri. This is one of his heat maps. So he actually broke down cannabis, several different strains, into all these different components. And he is brilliant. I'll talk about him in a second, but it's more than just THC. It's more than just THC and CBD. Those are the two most popular cannabinoids. But in a marijuana plant, you have active ingredients, about 500 components of it, and then you have about 100 to 140 cannabinoids. These are just the most popular ones. But if you look at the power of the plant, it has different properties in all of those 100 to 140 different cannabinoids. One of them is to calm, especially with post-traumatic stress disorder or anxiety, or for that matter, sleep. The other is inflammation, and that actually I believe that the CBD is the workhorse of the plant. But the thing is, it takes a while to build up, and it takes money because it's not covered by insurance. There is the GW Pharmaceuticals that just came out with a hemp-based high CBD. Well, it's all CBD really, high CBD tincture, and I think they're the first ones to patent it, and that's from hemp. So when you have a pharmaceutical company that's patented a CBD product from hemp, that means it's a medicine, which kind of is a dichotomy, because in the United States, hemp is considered a plant, recreation, or over the counter, but yet now you have a pharmacy that says it's medicine. I think we're on the verge of really using this plant, whether it's cannabis or hemp, to the point of medicinal. And in Illinois, it is medicinal now, but in about, on January 1st, 2020, it's going to be allowed to be used and purchased by recreational users without a license. But I've got a video on that. If you are waiting for that to turn over and you need it for medicines, I wouldn't count on the recreational industry, because I think you're only allowed to buy so many things when you want to take advantage. So the more options you have to use this plant and its medicinal properties to help you with your problem, inflammation, cancer, autoimmune disease, insomnia, anxiety, PTSD, arthritis, rheumatoid or scleroderma, or Crohn's disease, I think the more options you have with getting the dialed in proper plant and species and subtype, the less money you'll waste, the less side effects you'll have. And munchies are a side effect, I think. Fatigue's also a side effect, so I want that. Psychosis, not psychosis, but a little paranoia is also a side effect. But if you get the right, if you dial it in, you don't have to smoke this big plume and just hope that one of those things that you're getting in the smoke is what you need. Just go straight to the product, and that's where I think the heat map that Dee came up with would be great if we have it in the United States. I'm trying to develop something like that with an approach like that, but obviously to have a gas chromatography machine is really expensive, but we'll have a different way or an algorithm in the 2020 to be able to dial in what you need. So here, everybody knows me knows I love green tea. And tea comes from the plant Camellia sinensis, and it's only one plant, but if you've ever been to a tea shop, there's like 100 different teas. They all come from one plant, and they all affect you differently. These are two of my favorite. This is my favorite. I only have this on good days. Usually it's on Monday, but I decided until Christmas I'm going to have it every single day, but it's really expensive. This is Gyokuru. This is the expensive tea, if anything. This is totally different, and you can see they look different. So this is more black. This is more green. These are pre-rolled, but they come out like beads, pearls. This is all loose, but it smells different. I love the way this tastes. It tastes and smells, but they all come from the same plant. And just go to David's Teas or Adagio or any of those places, and you'll see when you go in for a glass of tea, they'll say, "What do you want?" And then it's all color-coded. So marijuana is the same thing. You don't just go to a dispensary and say, "I need something to smoke." You'll probably be talked into buying a lot of stuff. Not that the dispensary advisors are there to talk you into buying a lot. They're going to be helpful for guiding you to your symptoms. But they have done their reading, and they continue to read the information. But in the United States, the information is very limited because it's still, unfortunately, it's considered at the same level as heroin and LSD, which is unfair. So, and even doctors are not supposed to certify or prescribe this. I could lose my license, but in the state of Illinois, I'm being protected because I can certify for it. That's totally backwards, but until we change policy up above, it's going to be that way. And in fact, in my area, I'm like the only doctor who does this, except for speckling of other doctors. And honestly, I don't think they know what they're doing. They're just certifying because they don't want to give opiates anymore, which is a great reason to give medical cannabis, because I think there's too many side effects with opiates, and there's a death rate that's climbing. So thank God it's finally stalled a little bit because of the use of medical cannabis. So I guess if you understand that this plant is very useful, many different types or subtypes to use of those species, strains, I should say, and you kind of get the guidance on what you can buy or what you should be looking for from a medical doctor if you can find one, or from your own reading, that'd be good. You also have to know your disease process, so get into a doctor's office, get up with the right diagnosis. Nowadays, the 15-minute visits that are reimbursed by insurance that way, and I got another video on that, but hopefully a doctor can come up with a proper diagnosis. But once you have the diagnosis, and once you know which strain/subtype you're trying to get, I think it's easy to put the two together. If you put the two together, you should be a win. But remember, this plant changes depending on the humidity, the time of year, so there's a lot of variables, and I do think that the cultivators in Illinois will usually batch test. I have to question how often they batch test, but there is a certificate of analysis you can ask for from the cultivator. It might have to come through me, but I'm trying to get a hold of all these cultivators and have them continue to refresh my database. So we know that it does the cannabis plant is very useful, and we also know that cancer is destroying. It's a destroyer of lives, and I did talk about this in my last video, but just to refresh your memory, cancer is just one of your cells that's really gone astray. And then it becomes 2 of your cells, and then 8 of your cells, and then 16, and it keeps on, I skipped 4 there, but it keeps on multiplying like that. It could go slow, it could go fast, but by the time you notice it, it's probably not just in one spot. So that's why it's very important to lead a healthy life, because the unhealthy patient will, not everybody will end up with a disease process. As you know, some people who smoke never have lung cancer. But if you're trying to push the envelope and increase your chances for death, be sedentary, smoke and drink alcohol, gain weight, become obese, and you'll practice that kind of lifestyle, and you'll probably speed your way. The chances are you're going to speed your way onto a disease process. But God forbid, those of you who are maintaining what you're supposed to do and you still come up with a diagnosis of cancer, it's unfortunate, but have no fear. Even if you're pancreatic stage 4, I think there's still ways to help your body refresh and help it fight. But you have to understand how this works. So this is what happens in the cycle of a cell. It goes through 4 phases, and usually it's protein synthesis, it's getting ready at the G1 phase. They all hibernate for a little bit. That's called G0 phase. Then they get ready for mitosis or splitting, and they produce a whole bunch of products so that they get ready for the splitting. Then they go ahead and consider getting ready even further for the splitting, and then they split. It's called mitosis. So there's supposed to be 3 checks and balances, and sometimes with the checkpoints, if you get to the point where you get ready, but there's something weird with your DNA, or there's a segment that's not working right, there's checks in the system that will actually double check and say, wait, there's something wrong with us. Let's kill ourselves. It's called apoptosis. Or if that checkpoint is missed, another checkpoint at the end of mitosis and another checkpoint before G1 goes into S phase. So this is the typical cycle. If you think of this, you don't have to know the details. If you think of a life cycle of a cell as being ready to duplicate, ready to duplicate, ready to duplicate, that's easy to understand. And your checks and balances will be able to take care of that. But the problem with cancer is it has learned to avoid the checkpoints. It also learned to multiply very quickly. So it morphs the cell to not slow down, to speed up. And that's why it takes a world of energy to feed these cancerous cells to go this fast. And when they go this fast, they usually need a lot of blood flow, so a lot of blood vessels. They also need a lot of energy. That's why they suck the energy out of neighboring cells. So they keep on multiplying and they don't stop growing. And I mentioned it last time, Henrietta Lacks is a lady, I think she was back in the 50s, who had, I believe, cervical cancer. Cervical cancer usually kills in time, and before she died, the doctors got some biopsies and they kept the cells in petri dishes. And they grew them to test out the treatment plans for cancer, different cancer chemotherapies. She has passed away a long time ago, but those cells have been duplicated, grown, sent to other labs. They're all over the world now to test out different chemotherapy agents, radiation therapy, nutrition changes. So she is actually immortal, and her cells are immortal. These things will be immortal as long as you feed them. Unfortunately, in a human body, eventually this thing, it's what happens with this cell. This is a cell that used to be normal, but has been taken over into a fast and furious reproduction. And it parasites all the energy from neighboring cells. It grows without stopping, and it goes through mitosis, so it splits and produces more stuff. So the cancer continues to grow until it overwhelms the system, uses up all the energy, or stops the immune system, and then the patient dies because of either it takes up too much space, or it invades an organ system and makes the organ system fail. So in the case of, that's how this thing is supposed to be fast and furious without any stopping. And that's why, so that is considered a cancerous growth. And that is the problem with cancer, is that it won't stop. It'll continue to go until your body just succumbs to it. But if we can find the way to use the medical cannabis plant in an appropriate manner, you can slow that down, and I'll tell you how. So we do know, I'm going to throw a couple of these studies out. Whether you look into these studies or not, it's totally up to you. But we do know that it does help with cannabis does slow down the endocannabinoid system, and if you control the endocannabinoid system, you should be able to. The endocannabinoid system controls. It's like the master regulator. I call it corporate. The corporate always comes in to take care of my front office and then my back office. Hopefully my front office and my back office in this medical office will work independently, and then it'll work smoothly. But if corporate says that we're not following the rules, they'll come and mess up everything, or not mess up, but clean up everything to what the standard is, and then we'll go back into functioning properly. So the endocannabinoid system is corporate. And if your parasympathetic and sympathetic system is not working right, corporate's going to come in. If your hormone system is not working right, corporate's going to come in. If there's a cancer growing, corporate can affect the cancer. So we know that it works. And again, this is a study out of Spain. Hopefully the United States will come up with more studies, but as of yet, because it's an illegal or the same level as heroin and LSD, you can't get funding from the government like NIH to study anything just yet. Vote for the right guy in 2020, and hopefully we'll take it off of that schedule. At the least, we for sure know that it works to control inflammation. And I think we can all postulate, science or no science, scientist or physician or layman, we can postulate that a lot of cancers are based on inflammation. So I just wanted to show this because these are some of the mechanisms by which cancer affects inflammation. So you'll see NF-kappa B, you'll see a couple other things that have been affected and measured by the use of cannabis. So that documentation is there. Even if you're talking about just the inflammation response and MS, well, I guess I'll let show you this part, but a lot more information in this study with regards to MS, Crohn's disease, or cancer, or just plain old inflammation. So some of you are probably wondering, well, can I take the hemp stuff that I got? And hemp is over the counter in the United States. You can order it online. I think hemp plants, which are the cousin of marijuana plants, hemp plants are good too. They have 0.03% THC, which is essentially all CBD. I think if you take enough hemp, you might crank over and become positive for your THC, but it's a lot of hemp. And it's very expensive. And here's the one, I have some good friends who sell, they own hemp shops. I think they're very choosy. I think if I was to use hemp, I'd only go to them because they really look at their suppliers. However, if you look at one of the studies in JAMA that looked at that squared hemp or the CBD over the counter, 26% had less CBD than was on the label. So I think that's what happens when you're told that you can sell your stuff, but you have to. We trust that you're going to test your own stuff, right? So. It's like asking a teenager, don't have sex. We'll be giving you the keys, don't drive. The liquor cabinet's open, don't drink. So I think there are some good companies like who my friends have in their hemp stores, but there are also some bad companies, and they have very good labeling, but it's very convincing to give it a try. But if you have a medical cannabis card in the United States, I would just go with medical cannabis because the FDA is watchdogging these cultivators. And they can come in at any point in time and ask for the records of your batch test. And if you fail to produce the information or it doesn't match up with the batch test results don't match up with actual testing on their own, you can get fined a heavy fine. So I think that threat keeps most of the cultivators on their toes. So I think the chances are you will probably have better product, true to label, in the medical cannabis world. So if you happen to have a really good hemp-based company, then stick with them. But I think the other power is that if you have the synergy of CBD with high doses of THC, you'll have better response. This is also telling you that, and that's where I bring up this. So with regards to antineoplastic effect, this paper talked about the use of the synergy between THC and CBD working as a team. They worked independently to affect the cell differently, but when provided in the same environment, they worked as synergistically to destroy or improve cancer outcome. So I think it is good for the gene expression part.